Welcome back to Apartmentalize 2022, the live Apartment Academy podcast. Next up on the podcast today, Abbie Huffman, CIG Communities. Hi, Abbie.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for joining us, taking time out of a very busy show to talk with us a little bit.
Excited to be here.
Thank you. Abbie, you, I would say, have an unusual path to the operator side. You spent so much time on the vendor side. Tell us a little bit about yourself first as context, and we'll talk about what that difference is, like different paths within the apartment multifamily world.
Sure.
You know, for professionals.
Absolutely. So, Abbie Huffman, I'm with CIG Communities, and we're headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. We own, develop, and manage communities throughout the Midwest, the Southeast, and Mid-Atlantic. And we currently have around 1,200 apartment homes that we're managing, but certainly looking to grow that, hopefully significantly. So my background, it is kind of unique. I spent the first 7 years of my career in an operations side. So I worked for another management company, and then in 2013, I switched to the supplier side of the business. So I spent 7 years there in property management technology, and I would say so far I've had an incredible career. This is such a amazing industry with a lot of opportunities. And then just last year, it made sense for me where I am in my life and what I'm looking for and what I'm really passionate about to go back to the operations side. So I found my new home at CIG Communities, and it's been a lot of fun.
What is it about being back on the operations side that appeals to you?
Well, everything in a way. I mean, there's so many aspects to what we do that I really truly enjoy. But I would say when you think about the biggest differences is, you know, we are solving problems that have to be solved immediately when you're on site. And not that suppliers don't have that same experience, but where I was, you know, we were solving problems as well, but it took a little bit longer to get those implemented for our clients. Whereas when you're managing someone's home and or someone's looking for a new place to live, that's a very crucial time in their life usually. Something major has happened. Maybe they are starting a new job, or their relationship status has changed, or, you know, they're moving out of home for their parents' house. So it's just such a major time in people's lives, and there's so many things that can happen, and it's so important that we take great care of them immediately, as soon as possible. And I just like that. I like solving problems very quickly. That's on the site level, and that at what we call the home office level, you know, they're so dependent. If it's something, a decision that can't be made immediately by them, like it's urgent. Like we have to get to that immediately. And I just like that sense of urgency and executing quickly.
I hear so much enthusiasm in your voice.
Sure.
Talking about the challenges with residents, and oftentimes I talk about that as what makes this business hard, and why I think there are, well, there's a number of reasons for this, but one of the reasons we have retention issues is the emotional toll that being in this business can take on a person, because you are so embedded in their lives in a way. People are getting divorced and they can't afford the rent. They have to come to you and you have to tell them you got to pay the rent. People have the wrong breed of dog. You got to tell me about how what kind of mindset looks at that and says, this is, but I can help, and you know, why that was more appealing than being able to avoid all of that mess.
Sure. Well, I think personally, and I would say so many people that I've met in this industry, I do have a degree in psychology, and I found that a lot of people that I meet,
you're a people person.
Yes.
In that
Well,
way,
you'll start interacting with people, certainly at a conference like this, and you'll ask them, you know, if they went to college or whatnot, that what did you get your degree in? And oftentimes it is in something like that, a social science. And so for me, I wanted to help people, and I would say most people in this industry, I mean, if you're going to be successful and really love what you're doing, you have to be able to want to help people. So it doesn't mean it's always easy, and some people don't want to help themselves, and that can be a real challenge. But I think for our teams, you know, just encouraging them that, you know, to understand and to listen, you know, it's not always easy, but at the end of the day, this is someone's home, and that's one of the most basic human needs, as I shared with you, is this a shelter? And it's just really important that we keep that in mind, no matter how stressful or elevated situations can get. So, plus you just meet so many people in this industry. It's amazing.
That's true. Let's talk more about the soft skills on the operations side, because what I want you to do is I want you to contrast that to what your life was like on the vendor side.
Okay.
So that people listening, if they have a choice for a career path, is they can decide which one of those things feels more like me.
Sure.
So talk a little bit more about the soft skills, because they're so important on the operations side, and then we can switch to what vendor life is like.
So soft skills on the operations side.
Yeah.
Well, I think, it's interesting. I think you have to be a people person. You don't necessarily have to be a people pleaser, but you have to be able to understand and to listen to people. And that certainly isn't just from a resident experience. That certainly comes from as an employer. You have to listen to your employees. Things are changing. There's a lot of evolution happening right now. So it's important that you listen to people. I think just being supportive, being positive, and that's not just in this industry. I think it's so important that we focus on what's going well. We've had a lot of things that haven't gone well, certainly in the past couple of years, but that's always going to be the case. So having just that positivity and staying positive and just believing that things are going to work out. Might not look the way we thought it was going to look, but so those are things that I think are really important.
How about dealing with confrontation?
Dealing with confrontation, sure.
Yeah, does CIG train people on your team members on confrontation and how to deal with all this stuff?
I think we have a very tight-knit team. We're a smaller organization right now, and we have very much open communication amongst our team members. So yes, we absolutely talk to our team members. We also do trainings that everyone takes. But when it comes to dealing with either resident conflicts or employee conflicts, it's important that we keep the lines of communication open, but certainly also that we ensure that we have a good understanding of what's really driving the confrontation.
Yeah, and now let's contrast that with what was life like for you on the vendor side, and what skills better serve somebody on that side of the world.
I had a lot of fun on that side of the business. I will say, so I went from operations to supplier, back to operations. So coming into a position that I had with the knowledge of what it's like to be on site and what those challenges are. I think when you have those sorts of skill sets and those experiences, certainly when you've been on site and you know what it's like when someone's trying to get into the leasing office, they're banging on the door, or there's a serious emergency. When you've had that sort of that experience and you can go to the supplier side, I think there's a lot of value in that. But for someone who maybe doesn't have any industry experience, it doesn't mean you can't be really successful, because you can. But you have to listen to your clients. You have to attend events like NAA, be a member of the National Apartment Association or your local affiliate, because it's so important that you educate yourself. You need to understand. I mean, there are things that could impact you, whether it's fair housing or certainly legislation that's taking place constantly. You need to be in the know, and the way that people can educate themselves is by joining an apartment association. Additionally, you get the ability to network with others.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. You don't necessarily have to be an extrovert like myself, but definitely get out there and attend events, network as much as you can. Oftentimes I found as a supplier, you can cold call, you can network as much as you want and try to get in front of the decision makers, but sometimes, and I would say actually a lot of times, it's your supplier friends. They already have the relationships. We're all calling, you're all calling the same people, so why not, ask for an introduction that way. So don't ignore the suppliers in the industry. If you don't know people, call on them too, and they'll help facilitate some really great introductions for you.
So I think the industry, and maybe this is what you were alluding to, sort of smells it on you if you really don't know what you're talking about.
Yes.
And that probably makes it hard. So getting out, getting the education, the experience, and networking really probably critical to success.
Absolutely.
Assuming you're mostly on the sales side. I mean, that's...
Yeah. I mean, no one expects a new salesperson who's never been in the industry to just get it or to understand, but you have to take the initiative to try to figure it out. So whether it's listening to, your podcast, watching it, get in the know and do as much as you can to really understand what are the challenges, what are your clients faced with, and how can we help them.
Sometimes folks in the industry are curious, or on one side or the other. They're wondering what sort of compensation looks like. Are you in any position to talk to, like, if on the vendor side, like if you're in sales in some capacity, about what do you think those folks should expect to make on an annual basis?
Well, I don't feel comfortable just stating any sort of range, certainly because I think it depends on where you are, what space you're in, your experience. But I think there's a huge opportunity that if you want to have a very successful career, we'll say in sales, this is a great place to do that. Yeah. Certainly if you're building a lot of relationships, there's a huge opportunity there. And I think our industry, since you're specifically asking about compensation, our industry is really looking at this. I mean, we have to do more, and probably all industries are. I spend most of my time in this one, so this is what I know. But I think we really do need to evaluate that, because operators will lose people to, going to the supplier side, but the same could be said the other way. So I think it's important that we're always evaluating and making sure that we're taking care of people and doing what we can to not lose them, and compensation's a pretty good way to do that. Yeah,
I think what people often get attracted to when they think about the vendor side is, I think I'm comfortable saying,
sure,
hey, it is not unusual for folks on the vendor side who are in the sales capacity to make $200,000 or more. That happens for sure. Rarely happens on the operations side unless you're at a regional above level, right? But what people forget about, I think, is that if you don't perform on the vendor side, then you're out of a job. Yeah. Whereas you might not have the earning capacity on the operations side, but there's so much more forgiveness. There's so much more willingness to give you time to learn and do better and improve in training. You can make mistakes. You have the freedom to make mistakes.
Sure. Well, I think the other thing is, when we think about compensation, it's not just, what does my paycheck look like? There's so much more, and time, to me, is the number one thing. That's the only thing that you can't get back. So what does your time look like, and how does your company and how does your culture allow for people to do their jobs and to get their jobs done, but also have time with their family, with their friends, with the hobbies that they enjoy? I think that's really important. As a company, we're definitely taking a look at flexible ways to make sure that our team is finding work-life balance. And that's something that everybody talks about, but like, what are you actually doing about that? So we have a lot of really fun holidays that our team gets, and sometimes it's just random. All of a sudden, the president of our company, he sends out an email and everyone gets the day off. I mean, those are really fun things that can offer a lot to someone. So it's not just about the paycheck that they're getting. There's more, and there's so many other areas that you can compensate people. It's not just about the dollars always.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's not a stretch for me to say that part of the compensation for you on the operations side is the emotional satisfaction you get from helping people.
100%.
Yeah. Which it's hard to feel that on the vendor side in the same way. I mean, you get some of it. Your clients, speaking of somebody who's on the vendor side, you'd love to see clients embracing your product, but it's not their life the way that somebody's home is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very true.
So talk a little bit more about the culture at CIG. What do you do to ensure that work-life balance? Because that can be a problem for some operations.
Yeah, and we're certainly, no one's perfect, and it's not like we're not putting in long hours at times. I mean, we've got a lot in the pipeline, and we've got a lot of goals and initiatives that we're working on. That it's going to take a lot of time, but our culture, we are a family-owned business, and I would say that anytime you interact with a member of our team, you just get that vibe that we're a family. We're in this together. We're going to help each other out. We lift each other up. If something's going on with someone in our team, whether we know exactly what that is or not, what can we do to help you? And that comes from the top. And the founders and the president of our company, that's incredibly important to them, and it's just evident in the way that all of our employees are treated.
Yeah, especially with the smaller operating teams like over at CIG, it's much more difficult to operate a company at that scale than it is a large, company with 100, properties across the country,
Sure.
because you don't have the same middle management to support it. So everyone has to wear a lot of different hats. We were talking a little bit before about the technology that you guys are looking to put in place to help sort of, bolster the team so
Yes.
that you can be successful as you are scaling.
Absolutely.
But be successful right away. So talk a little about what's the right tech stack for a growing company, do you think?
Well, I think it depends on what your company's goals are, what you're looking to accomplish. Definitely paying attention to what type of assets you're managing, and certainly the needs of your team. But from our perspective, I'm going to take a step back outside of tech. We build a solid team, and then we want to build a solid tech stack. And it starts in the middle with your PMS and
Yes.
what you're using there. But certainly, we've implemented so many different pieces of technology. We've moved on with Blue Moon leases, NAA Click and Comply. There's so many different pieces that we've implemented, but it's important that they speak to your property management software. And we want it to be as seamless a process as possible for not only our residents, but certainly our employees. There's so many different systems that everyone's logging into, and we just feel like that's one of the first questions that we're going to ask. Does it integrate with our property management software? And if it doesn't mean that we're not going to have that conversation, but we will really evaluate if that's going to make sense or not. So we've got a lot of different things that we've rolled out. Revenue optimization, new leases, virtual tours. I mean, you name it. There's so much out there, but we're certainly evaluating all of them.
Is there anything? I know we need to let you get back to the show, but is there anything that you're evaluating right now that's on the horizon that you're interested in? Maybe you haven't adopted it yet, but it's like you think that's where the industry's going.
I don't know that I would say this is where the industry's going, but something that has really caught my eye recently are just they're like kiosks where people can rent all different types of items. So maybe you need a basketball for the day. Maybe you need my vacuum cleaner doesn't work anymore. I can go rent that Dyson downstairs. So I think that stuff like that is really cool, and providing those items for things like that, resources like that for your residents, that just makes it easier for them. They don't have to leave the community to get what they need. So I don't know if that's where the industry's going, but I'd like to see more ways to just keep our residents in our community, or at least make them feel like we have what they need here.
I love that suggestion.
Yeah,
I think that's the suggestion of the day.
Okay.
We need some kind of alert when that happens, but if we had it, that would now be all lit up. Is this suggestion of the day? Well, thank you for joining us on
Thanks
the
for having
Apartment
me.
Academy podcast. I appreciate it, and good luck with the show, and I hope you find some cool stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.